Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Impact Rebellion 2019 review. I went about today taking the time to watch this incredible event. The first three matches of the show was actually not all that great. More of a matches that belonged on the of a card of an Impact Wrestling episode. It wasn't exactly what you call a very good beginning to the show. But the last five matches that they built up through the months leading up to from Homecoming to Rebellion was actually a very good job. Every match felt important. Every match was done very well. Well, not very well. It was pretty average, but it wasn't bad. The main event was fantastic, which I'm going to go into that right now. I was a bit surprised that they went with the idea of having the tag team championship belts on the line in the main event. I kind of figured that would be the co-main event, but if you look at what happened during this matchup, the way they did it, I said to myself, they've got to be doing something that's going to be amazing and shock the hell out of me to feel okay with this match being the main event on the card. And they lived up to those expectations. The action in the ring was unbelievable. It was a show stealer. Tessa Blanchard was fantastic against Gail Kim. Their one-on-one singles matchup that wasn't it wasn't a hardcore match. It was strictly just a regular matchup, and it was very well done. The only thing I didn't like about that portion of the match was there was a bit of a botched move, which I'll get into once I talk about that matchup. But everything on the card here and there was surprisingly good. I actually enjoyed watching this show from beginning to end outside of the first three matches. They were average. They weren't horrible, the first three matches. I just didn't care for them. They weren't built up into anything. There was nothing major here. I believe that's... what's his face? Eli Drake and Eddie Edwards belong on this card against each other in a one-on-one match. That is definitely something that should have happened. But that's not the case. I'm not going to get into the first three matches. Actually, I will talk about the six-man tag team match that happened, which was the final of the three that I didn't care too much being on the card. But it was a six-man tag team matchup with Moose and the North, which contains Ethan Page and his other partner. I forgot the guy's name. It's not that big of a deal. The guy isn't all that impressive of a wrestler anyway. Who really helped this match move along was the... I forgot their names. Well, then forget the fucking matchup anyway. Because I think they're called the Radicals. Damon Xavier is actually one of their tag team partners. Then there's Trey, and then there's somebody else. And the three men that were from the Radicals are actually very good during this matchup. They carried this match all together. If it wasn't for those three, the match would have absolutely sucked. But skipping all of that, let's get into the main card, which was five really decent and entertaining matchups. The first matchup that I was on the card that they started into is Taya Valkyrie defending her Women's Impact Wrestling Championship against Jordan Grace. And this matchup was a solid one. It had its ups, it had its downs. It was pretty much a very solid, okay matchup. Something you might see on Impact Wrestling anyway, but it was still a well-done job. Decent enough for me to say this was a 3 out of 5 star matchup. Taya Valkyrie retained her championship. She is still the Impact Women's Champion. So, congratulations to her. I didn't find anything that they did in this matchup to be mind-boggling or stand out in any way, but the way they closed it out was done very well, and I actually found it completely okay in my mind. The one thing I did not like about this matchup, and it's been most of the time with most Impact Wrestling matches, and you can also see it in WWE, is the pace. The pace does not pick up. It stays slow. It never goes in that next gear. It doesn't get you, really into what they're doing. And that's what throws it off. No matter what story they're telling, no matter what they are doing in that ring to help build towards what the characters are creating, if you ain't got a solid matchup that picks up the pace, the match is going to lose people's interest and nobody's going to care. Now, granted, this matchup wasn't horrible. It did start picking up somewhat of a pace, but it wasn't the pace that we see later on during the show. The matches after this got even better and better. So, overall, I don't have any beef with the matchup itself. Then we go into the X Division Championship matchup in an OVE, Ohio versus Everything Rules matchup, which is basically a hardcore match. I am going to come out and say it on record in this video. Sami Callihan is the new Tommy Dreamer of today's modern day wrestling. Bottom line. You watch this guy, you put him in a regular matchup, he's boring as fuck. He's got a couple of good moves, and that's pretty much it. He's not exactly what you call a catch cam wrestler. He's a hardcore wrestler that's got to use weapons. He's like Sabu and Sandman and all those guys. He'd have belonged in ECW if ECW still existed. But with all that being said, Sami Callihan and fucking what's-his-face, Rich Swann, they beat each other's ass in this matchup. One spot that I couldn't believe I saw, which happened in several different spots, in the area that they were, was by this ramp that comes towards the ring. And Sami Callihan puts the railing, the barricade railing, and connects it from the ramp all the way to the a table he stacked up. And he goes ahead, he grabs Rich Swann, and he pile drives him through the railing. The poor fucking guy could have broke his freaking neck. And thankfully, I think Sami Callihan protected him, and mostly Sami Callihan took the damage of this move, not Rich Swann, even though Rich Swann sold it like a superstar. And Sami Callihan throws him in the ring, tries to get the 1-2-3. Rich Swann kicks out, and the match continues. These guys hit each other with everything. Trash cans, chairs, you name it. They did it all. They killed each other. They spit in each other's faces. They even took each other's saliva and licked this shit. It was fucking gross. I mean, everything they did in this matchup was just downright insane. This really picked up the show at this point. By the fifth match in the card, this is the match that really picked things up for this entire show. I was dumbfounded by this matchup. Very solid matchup. Give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Definitely well worth the watch. If you've never seen it, catch it, because it was a lot better than what they did on Impact Wrestling for the Impact X Division title. Rick Swann actually retained the championship, by the way, and wins the match by a submission hold with a fucking barbed wire bat over Sami Callihan's head. Now, this is where it kind of rubbed me the wrong way about this. You're using a barbed wire bat, and yet you don't have Sami Callihan bleed? What are you using, a fake fucking barbed wire? I mean, that shit should have made him get cut. There was a lot of people bleeding in this event. Fucking Lance Storm, who was a special guest referee, even bled in this match. Fucking Brian Cage, he bled in his match for the world title. Both of those guys were bleeding in the same matchup. The fucking everybody was roughed up this entire show. I honestly feel like as if these guys deserved a fucking week off. Really. The whole entire roster, at least anyone that was in a hardcore matchup, really deserved to have the night off for the May 3rd episode that they were going to have. Because straight up, this was a fucking unbelievable hardcore fest of a matchup. If you like hardcore wrestling, this was hardcore at its finest. It lived up to almost like Impact SummerSlam. Slammiversary. Excuse me, Impact Slammiversary from 2018. They had hardcore wrestling out the ass in that one. And this one had the exact same thing. These guys really tore it up on each other. Each and every match, they really beat the shit out of each other. From there, we had Tessa Blanchard and Gail Kim compete against each other in a singles one-on-one matchup. This matchup really was the classiest matchup I have ever seen, and one of the stiffest women's matchup I have seen in quite a while. It really lives up to a WWE women's wrestling lately. I mean, in the top-notch level of WWE's women performers like Charlotte and Becky Lynch. Those women doing what they do, and Ronda Rousey and so forth. That is the type of wrestling what you were gonna see in this matchup, and that's what they delivered here in this match. They were very stiff with each other in this matchup, making it look as believable as they possibly could without hurting each other severely. And they just put it all out there. They really performed hard with each other. My only issue with this matchup was this botch spot that I saw where Tessa Blanchard does a leap off the top rope to do a code breaker on a Gail Kim, and Gail Kim kind of fucked it up, I think, or it might have been Tessa Blanchard, I'm not sure, but one of them fucked that spot up, and it looked really out of sorts. I didn't particularly care for that spot very much. But there was another spot before that was really holy shit type of moment, which was in the same exact area from that ramp, only on the other side of where Sami Callihan pile drive freaking Rich Swann through the guard railing that was held up. So Tessa Blanchard takes Gail Kim, and she does a fucking maneuver. I forgot what it was because there's so many different... I should jot these little spots that I see that I enjoyed from the match down just to throw this stuff at you guys, and I do apologize about that. I don't have my computer up and running just while I'm recording these videos, so I don't really have a play-by-play information to give me some information on what happened so I can refresh my memory. So I do apologize about that, but I do remember that there was a spot. Gail Kim took a severe bump being thrown off that ramp onto the floor, and my God, like, she was hurt bad. Every fucking person in the last 3 matchups got thrown on the fucking side of that ramp, which was really sick. But bottom line, these women went all out with each other, and at the end of it, it was a very proud moment in professional wrestling. It showed a great amount of class and professionalism by Impact Wrestling to end that matchup in such the classiest way. They had these two women trashing on each other, and Tessa Blanchard went all out, fucking downright rude and nasty by going into Gail Kim's husband's restaurant and just fucking it up, even though, bottom line, it pretty much seemed like a very crappy little segment that they tried to produce to heat up the rivalry between these two women. But this is what I will give Impact Wrestling credit. They at least try. Their problem is their performers don't have the greatest acting skills. Not to mention their storyline writers, I think, do things a little over the top, making it seem a little less interesting. But the direction that they try to go with is a very good and not an insult to your intelligence type of thing. So, straight up, I didn't have any problems with it. I liked the direction they were trying to go, getting very personal with one another. The acting just seemed a little off to me. I mean, the cooks were fucking weird, building this whole segment up, and they just didn't seem to know how to act at all. It just seemed like a bunch of low-down bums that were just thrown in here just to get a buck, and they didn't really sell me on the idea that they were actually cooks or God knows what and what have you, and it just came across really fucking stupid. But that's not here or there. The matchup itself was great. Tessa Blanchard won the matchup by a fucking submission hold and made Gail Kim tap out to basically a modified crossface where she takes her arm, wraps it around her neck, and then pulls back on it while her other arm is wrapped up by Tessa Blanchard's legs. And she had nowhere to go, and she just had to basically tap out. And that's how the match ended. So, great matchup. The two women shake hands, give each other a hug. They're both crying at each other. No, I guess you could say they were breaking character in a way, because it was in a sentiment of like the passing of the torch by Gail Kim to Tessa Blanchard. And that was really, I would say, her retirement matchup that Gail Kim was going for. So great ending to that matchup, regardless of what anyone thinks of what happened with the matchup itself within what happened in that matchup itself. But the ending was fantastic. I was picturing maybe Tessa Blanchard acting like a dick, beat her up from behind after they shook hands and what have you. None of that happened. They ended the rivalry. The whole thing's done with. It went away with a beautiful and happy ending, regardless of the fact that the bad guy won the match. I think that was great. The matchup itself, I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Solid and entertaining matchup all around. Then, we had a bit of a mix-up here, which I got a little confused on, but as the show went on and we got to the main event, I understood why, and I'll get into that with you. We got into the Impact World Championship with Johnny Impact defending his Impact World title against Brian Cage, the Terminator. That's his nickname in the company, which very, very original there, Impact. Jesus Christ. I do have to say this. I am getting really sick and tired of Impact Wrestling, TNA, giving us a new world champion that is a face and turning him heel in the middle of their run. That shit is getting really fucking old. Thankfully, now that they have Brian Cage, yes, Brian Cage won the matchup and became the new World Heavyweight Champion in Impact Wrestling. in a very, very good matchup as well. Solid all-around action here. If you've seen the matches they've had before, it was good. And that's what they had here. But a couple of interferences occurred. Lance Storm bled from behind the head. He fell on the back of his head on the outside of the ring. Johnny Impact did a freaking lionsault while holding on to Brian Cage and landing him onto his back, and him landing on the outside of the ring off of that ramp area. And that was just fucking brutal. But yeah, it was, if you've seen Brian Cage's matches and you've seen Brian Cage and Johnny Impact actually perform against each other one-on-one in their lead up to this event, you've seen pretty much what they can do, and that's what you got here. There was a lot of interference in here, which was to be expected. There was no doubt about it that it was not going to have an interference anyway. But the major issue I have with this is, like I said, a title change, and then your face as a champion, then you become a heel later on as champion. I don't particularly like that very much. They did that with CM Punk, but they had him champion for a whole entire year. Johnny Impact did not have that kind of run. He became champion in October. He stayed champion and then turned heel just before he lost his belt. I don't particularly agree with that, but at the end of the matchup, they had Michael Elgin come out, who is a former Ring of Honor World Champion and a former IWGP Intercontinental and I believe a never open weight champion. So him showing up and issuing a challenge to Brian Cage immediately after he won the title, I really don't have any problem with. At least you got a top heel that you could work with, build these two guys up against each other into a rivalry, and then shoot them in July 7th for Slammiversary and have that be your main event for the World Heavyweight title. I really hope they don't have Brian Cage defend his title at all against anyone until July 7th. Make this get built up. Stop making them defend the title so much. It doesn't give any kind of prestige to the belt if it's defended against all kind of people. I mean, it just makes it seem like shit. I mean, it's not meant to be a workhorse title. That shouldn't be the workhorse title. The X Division title should be the workhorse title because it's a mid-card championship. Now, if you don't got a mid-card title for a heavyweight, then get a mid-card title for a heavyweight so that can be used as a main event matchup for like an Impact Wrestling show itself, for the television shows. But, despite all that, I'm glad they got Michael Elgin as his newfound opponent. Now, granted, he's done nothing. He just showed up at this fucking event. Might have had a matchup on the Impact Wrestling show for May 3rd from yesterday, which I haven't got to watch yet. But I don't believe that he deserves a title shot. Now, this is definitely worth doing anyway, because at the end of the day, you have Brian Cage retain the title against Michael Elgin and find a new replaceable heel for Michael Elgin's spot after he loses to face Brian Cage, leading into, I would believe, they're going to probably just have no pay-per-view leading up to the Bound for Glory event. Now, with such a stretch of time between fucking Slammiversary and Bound for Glory, if they got no pay-per-view in between those two pay-per-views, I would push for a title match here or there, like one or two title matches that where he defends the belt. But him going about defending it almost every fucking week, I don't agree with, which Johnny Impact was doing that in his beginning part of his run as the Impact World Champion, which I think was completely nuts. So there you have it. This matchup, I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now, the main event for the Impact World Tag Team titles, this matchup, I was totally against being the main event. But being Full Metal Mayhem and what they provided in this match, it shocked the living hell out of me. They went all out. They got fucking tax. Oh yeah, speaking of using weapons and stuff in the Rich Swann, Sami Callihan match, instead of tax in that matchup, by the way, fucking Sami Callihan thought of a great idea that's very unique, very out of the ordinary, and I've never seen before. Maybe it's been done in other wrestling promotions that I have not watched yet, but he whipped out fucking Legos. Little tiny pieces of Legos that little children play with all the time, and he used it as a weapon to put his opponent and pile drive his head into it off the top rope. Pretty fucking sick. Anyway, going into this matchup though, the Impact World Tag Titles, the Lucha Brothers took the fucking thumbtacks, put them all over a fucking table. This is how the match closed out the show. And Santana is on top of the ladder, and so is Pentagon Jr., and he's climbing up the ladder, and they're both beating the shit out of each other. And then out of nowhere, Martinez, Angel Martinez, comes out of nowhere after he was fucking... I'll get into that spot with him a little bit. But he goes ahead. He comes out of nowhere after getting hit with a very bad spot that really took him out of action for about almost 5 minutes. And he hits Pentagon Jr. from the back with his arm and fucked him up and stopped his momentum on the top of the ladder to possibly do something to Santana, put him through the tables with the thumbtacks on him. And he's getting ready to powerbomb, but before he does, fucking Konnan gives Santana a freaking fork, and he drives it through his skull. And then Angel Martinez powerbombs him right through the fucking tables with the thumbtacks, and they get the 1, 2, 3. Now, going into the spot before that, with Angel Martinez and Phoenix, they were also on top of ladders with a table set on the outside of the ring on that ramp area, and they went ahead and did a suplex from the inside of the ring to the outside of the ring, going high elevation and slamming Angel Martinez right through the fucking table onto that hard ramp. And my God, how this man continued, I don't even understand or can comprehend how the hell he got up. I really don't. I figured his back and his ribs were probably fucked up to shit. And yet this guy managed to get up at the end of that spot of the match and still close out the show with Santana and Pentagon Jr. Phoenix took a hard bump in that move as well. His head just smacked right in the back of his skull smacked right into that ramp. He was out for the rest of the match. So he was just fucking done from that spot. The rest of the matchup from beginning to that ending spot was just all a bunch of fucking chair shots, tables, you name it, they did it. I mean, they really brutally beat the shit out of each other. And that's pretty much it. There was this one spot that was very off the wall I didn't really like, but they did it anyway. They put they sat down in chairs and they started slapping and punching each other which I didn't really appreciate. These guys were beating the hell out of each other, and then they stopped beating the hell out of each other so they can have a sit-down session while they punch and slap each other in the face like they do in the indies. I thought that was a little retarded in itself. But regardless of all of that, the matchup overall was a fantastic and awesome way to close out the show. And with the ending of the matchup and LAX retaining or winning the World Tag Team titles, they had the entire locker room come out, celebrate in front of the audience, and they had a fantastic closing to that show with them showing gratitude towards each other as a team and showing a lot of respect despite the fact of losing respect for one another leading up to this matchup. So great job by everyone in this match. I enjoyed watching the hell out of these fucking matches. These 5 matches were fun to watch. The first 3 matches, like I said, could have taken them or leave them. It was really not needed on the card, but I guess they just needed some time filler matches to lead up for the really beginning part of the show, which should have been the main card. Those really should be looked at as like the undercard type of situation. But anyway, guys, hit the like button if you liked the video. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to this channel. And leave a comment down below if you've seen this event yet. Let me know what you guys thought of it. If you liked it, great. If not, tell me why. But anyway, guys, I thank you very much for watching. I will be giving and providing Random Wrestling Talk episode number 12 tomorrow while I'm going ahead and doing my laundry anyway. So I will speak to you guys tomorrow about that. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great night.